The road to redemption night was falling heavily on Interstate 40, and Jake Corrigan was adjusting the rearview mirror of his Peterbilt 389 for the 10th time that hour. It wasn't nervousness, it was habit. 23 years on the road teach a man to double-check everything, especially when you're hauling 15 tons of industrial equipment from Oklahoma to North Carolina. Jake was 52 years old, his gray hair beginning to overtake the once vibrant brown and deep wrinkles around his eyes, the result of both smiling and gazing at the rising sun thousands of times. It had been 3 years since Margaret had left. Cancer. Quick and cruel as it often is. Since then, the truck cab had become more than his workplace. It was his home, his refuge, the only place where the memories didn't hurt so much. The gas station appeared like an oasis of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee. Jake checked the fuel gauge and decided to stop, not so much out of necessity, but because he had learned long ago that skipping stops was like tempting fate unnecessarily. Besides, a hot coffee would be nice. While refueling, Jake noticed an old white sedan parked strangely near the pumps on the other side. It wasn't exactly abandoned, but something was off about the scene. The driver's side door was open, and he could hear raised voices. A deep, aggressive male voice dominated the conversation. Jake paid for his gas and coffee at the cashier, a disinterested young man who didn't even look up from his phone. As he left, the voices became clearer. "You're going to do what I told you, Sarah. I don't care if you're tired, if you're nauseous or whatever. You get in that car now." Jake stopped. He then saw a young woman, no more than 22 or 23 years old, with a prominent belly of at least 7 months of pregnancy. She was leaning against the car, holding onto the side as if she needed support. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying so much. "Please, Tom, I just need 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to use the bathroom and get some water. The baby is moving around a lot and I'm not feeling well." The man, Tom, was younger, perhaps 30 years old, with a robust build and an expression Jake knew well. He had seen that kind of anger before, the kind that doesn't stem from a moment of frustration, but from something deeper and more dangerous. 5 minutes? We've already lost 2 hours because you had to stop every 20 minutes. My mother is waiting for us, and you're just sitting there with your pregnancy fussiness. Jake felt a tightening in his chest. Margaret had been pregnant once, many years ago. They had lost the baby in the 4th month. He remembered how fragile she was, how every movement required extra effort, how careful he had been with every word, every gesture. "Excuse me," Jake approached, his voice calm but firm. It was a voice that had already de-escalated tense situations in loading docks and noisy parking lots. Tom turned abruptly. "What? That's none of your business, old man." "It just seemed to me that the young lady needs a moment." Jake maintained a neutral tone, not threatening, but also not submissive. "It wouldn't hurt to take a break." "Who the hell do you think you are? Some kind of road hero?" Tom took a step toward Jake, puffing out his chest. Jake didn't move. He was 6 inches taller and had 20 pounds of muscle mass built up over decades of carrying chains and adjusting loads. But that wasn't what it was about. It never was. "I'm just a guy who thinks a pregnant woman deserves a minimum of respect and care," Jake said simply, "especially if she's carrying his child." Sarah took advantage of the distraction and moved quickly toward the convenience store, one hand supporting her stomach, the other gripping the wall as she walked. Tom noticed and turned to follow her, but Jake moved to block his path, not aggressively, just positioning himself there. "Let her go to the bathroom," Jake said. "You seem like a smart guy. You know that stressing a pregnant woman isn't good for the baby." "Get out of my way," Tom growled, but something was shifting in his demeanor. Perhaps it was Jake's calm presence, or perhaps it was the fact that 2 other truckers had stopped what they were doing and were watching the situation closely. Jake didn't move. "I'll leave when I'm sure she's safe." The next few minutes were tense. Tom stood there, alternating between fury and calculation. Jake maintained his position, taking occasional sips of his coffee, as if he had all the time in the world. Eventually, Tom backed down, returning to the car and getting into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut. Jake waited until he saw Sarah come out of the convenience store. She looked a little better. She had washed her face and was holding a bottle of water. When her eyes met Jake's, there was gratitude there, but also fear. She walked slowly back to the car, and Jake gently intercepted her before she reached it. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Sarah glanced at the car, where Tom was visibly annoyed in the driver's seat, then back at Jake. Yes, I'm fine." "It doesn't seem like it," Jake said, his voice soft. "Miss, I don't usually meddle in other people's lives, but this isn't right. Can I call someone for you? A family member?" For a moment, Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I have no one. My parents kicked me out when they found out I was pregnant. He's all I have." Jake felt his heart clench. "He shouldn't be like this. Not the way he's treating you." "He's not always like this," Sarah said quickly, the automatic defense of someone caught in a bad situation. "It's just that he's stressed. His job isn't going well, and the pregnancy wasn't planned, and we're going to see his mother who can't stand me and—" "Stop," Jake said gently. "You don't need to explain or justify yourself, but you need to hear this. You deserve better. Your baby deserves better." Tom honked the car horn loudly and Sarah jumped. "I need to go," she said. Jake pulled his cell phone out of his pocket. "I'll give you my number. If you need help, any help at all, just call me. No matter the time, no matter where you are. Promise." Sarah hesitated, glanced at the car, then quickly dialed the number Jake was dictating into her own phone. "I promise," she whispered, then turned and walked back to the car. Jake watched the white sedan pull out of the parking lot, a cloud of dust rising behind it. Something inside him knew this wasn't over. He'd seen enough in life to recognize a situation that was only going to get worse. He returned to his truck, but found he couldn't simply keep going. He started the engine and, instead of returning to the interstate, followed the same direction the sedan had taken. He kept his distance. He wasn't chasing, just checking, just making sure. 2 hours later, when the sky was completely dark, Jake saw the sedan stopped on the shoulder of a poorly lit back road. The emergency lights were flickering faintly. His stomach clenched and he slowed down, stopping the truck a safe distance behind the car. As he approached on foot, he could see Tom outside the car, yelling at Sarah through the open window. She was in the passenger seat, bent forward, clearly in pain. "This is ridiculous," Tom yelled. "You're being dramatic. We're not even near a hospital." Jake quickened his pace. "What the hell is going on?" "You again." Tom turned around, his face contorted with anger. "Are you following us now? That's harassment." Jake ignored him and went straight to Sarah's window. She was sweating, her face contorted in pain. "Sarah, what's happening?" "Contractions," she gasped. "They started 15 minutes ago. They're very close together." "She's faking it," Tom insisted. "It's too soon. She just wants attention." Jake turned to Tom with an expression that made the younger man take a step back. "Listen here, kid. I don't know what kind of man you think you are, but I'll tell you the kind of man I see. The kind who will regret it for the rest of his life if something happens to this baby, because you were too proud to ask for help." He turned his attention to Sarah. "How many weeks are you?" 33, she whispered. "This is premature," Jake said, already grabbing his phone. "I'm going to call emergency services." "No." Tom stepped forward. "We don't have enough insurance. Do you know how much an ambulance costs?" Jake stopped and looked at the man with something close to pity. "Are you really more concerned about money than your son's life?" Tom opened his mouth, closed it, and then to Jake's surprise, his legs seemed to give way. He sat heavily on the ground beside the car, putting his head in his hands. "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to take care of a baby. I can barely take care of myself." Jake dialed the emergency number while watching Tom have what appeared to be a complete emotional breakdown. He gave the dispatcher the location and was informed that an ambulance was on its way, but it would take at least 25 minutes due to the remote location. "Sarah," Jake knelt beside the window, "have you taken any prenatal classes?" She nodded, breathless. "Some. The midwife said that if labor started early, I should go to the hospital immediately." Another contraction hit her and she screamed, gripping the car's dashboard. Jake made a decision. "I'm going to put her in the cab of my truck. It's higher, cleaner, and has more space. If this baby decides she doesn't want to wait for the ambulance, at least we'll be prepared." He didn't wait for Tom's approval. He carefully opened the car door and helped Sarah out, supporting her weight as he slowly guided her to the truck. Tom followed behind, staggering, looking as if in shock. In the cabin, Jake had prepared everything that might be useful. He had a clean emergency blanket, water, and a small flashlight. It wasn't much, but it was better than a car seat. "Do you have experience with this?" Sarah asked between contractions, her fingers squeezing Jake's hand with surprising force. "No," Jake admitted honestly. "But my wife, she used to say I was good at keeping calm when things got tough. We'll get through this together, okay?" The next 2 decades of minutes were the longest of Jake's life. Sarah's contractions grew closer and closer, more intense. Tom had climbed into the cabin and was sitting in the corner, pale and silent, utterly useless. Jake found himself constantly talking, reminding Sarah to breathe, telling nonsensical stories about the road, about Margaret, about anything that might distract her from the pain. "I feel like pushing," Sarah gasped suddenly, her eyes wide with fear. Okay, Jake said, though his heart was pounding. "The ambulance is almost here. Can you hear it?" He couldn't, but he was hoping the white lie would help. Then, like a miracle, he actually heard it, the distant siren growing louder. "Do you hear?" He smiled at Sarah. "You did it? You were so strong." Tears streamed down her face, but she smiled back. The paramedics arrived like a storm of professional efficiency. They quickly assessed Sarah, confirmed she was in active labor, and prepared her for transport. One of the paramedics, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, turned to Jake. "You did a good job keeping her calm. That makes a difference." "I'll go with her," Tom said suddenly, finding his voice. The paramedic looked at Sarah, who hesitated, then nodded weakly. "Wait," Jake said, holding Tom's arm. "If you're going to be a father, you need to be better. Better than you were today. Better than you've been. This baby is going to need you. Sarah is going to need you, but not this version of you, the best version." Tom looked at Jake, and for the first time, Jake saw something beyond anger or arrogance. He saw fear, yes, but also something that could be the beginning of understanding. "I don't know if I can," Tom admitted, his voice breaking. "Nobody knows," Jake said more gently, "but you start by making the right choice now, and you keep making the right choices, one after another. That's how you build the kind of man your son will need." Tom nodded slowly, then ran to get into the ambulance before it drove away. Jake stood there on the dark shoulder of the road, watching the red lights disappear into the distance. The silence of the night enveloped him, broken only by the distant chirping of crickets and the faint purr of his truck's engine. He thought of Margaret, of how she would have handled this situation, probably better than him. She always knew the right thing to say, the right way to make someone feel safe. He looked at the starry sky and whispered, "I hope I made you proud, Maggie." Jake returned to his truck and continued his journey. He had a deadline to meet, and the roads waited for no one. 3 days later, while he was unloading in Charlotte, his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Jake? It's Sarah." Her voice was tired but happy. "I just wanted to tell you, it's a boy, 4 kilos, perfectly healthy, even though he arrived a little early. They said it was a miracle he's doing so well." Jake felt a smile spread across his face. "That's wonderful, Sarah. How are you?" Tired, but okay. And Jake, Tom is here. He's really here. Not just physically, but, you know. He cries every time he holds the baby. I think he finally understands. I'm glad to hear that. We wanted to ask if you would mind if we used your name as the baby's middle name. Thomas Jacob. It seems right. Jake had to clear his throat before answering. It would be an honor. After he hung up, Jake sat in his cabin for a long moment. The roads had taken him to many places, shown him many things, but this random moment of intersection with lives he should never have known, this was something different. Margaret used to say that there are no coincidences, only people being where they need to be, when they need to be there. Maybe she was right. Maybe all those lonely nights on the road, all that time since she'd left, had led to this exact moment. For him to be at that gas station, at that time, for that young woman who needed help. Jake started the engine and drove back onto the road. He had miles ahead, and somewhere out there, a new little Jake was beginning his own journey. The road went on, always on, but sometimes, just sometimes, it took you exactly where you needed to be. And that, Jake decided as the sun rose over North Carolina, made all those lonely miles worthwhile.